Every day, 1,400 girls and women die giving birth. This is in 2003. Despite the fact that the number has been steadily decreasing at a rate of 1.4% per year, still over 1,200 women per year are dying. Given the technological advancements in the medical industry recently, the number should have drastically decreased. The fact of the matter is, our world is losing mothers due to inadequate reach of medical care to those who are economically suffering, especially in developing or third world regions. However, in Nigeria, they and other third world regions have moved in the opposite direction of this global trend, with a 1.4 increase each year, from 473 per 100,000 in 1990 to 608 per 100,000 by 2008. Southern Mexico's overall maternal death rates dropped from 152 per 100,000 births in 1980 to 52 in 2008. Even though this has been a minor improvement, more than 1 million people in Chiapas still do not have access to health care. By comparison, the 2008 rate was 4 in Italy, 17 in the United States, and 1,575 in Afghanistan. And in Guinea-Bissau, more than 600,000 women die in pregnancy or childbirth every year due to lack of proper care. Only 30% of the population has access to health care at all. This means that 1 in every 8 women die giving birth. Babies often don't survive the first 2 days of their lives. In the capital, Bissau, there is only 1 working, equipped surgery room. Ethiopia has one of the world's worst healthcare systems. A woman in Ethiopia has a 1 in 27 chance of dying, whereas in the United States, a woman has a 1 in 4,800 chance of dying during childbirth. 181 countries also show an annual decrease of 1.3% in the maternal mortality ratio, or MMR, the ratio of the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. We can now focus on Chicago, relating the socioeconomic factions to that of a broader global perspective.
I am Dr. Peter Denberg. I'm trained at University of Illinois and University of Chicago, and I do obstetric anesthesia as well as all other sorts of anesthesia. And as part of that, it's my responsibility primarily to make sure that the mother is healthy and stays alive. And often the obstetrician is, although not exclusively, but largely concerned with the health and well-being of the baby. And the health and well-being of the mom and the baby the same thing is not always good for both of them. And so, you've got a doctor who's kind of concerned with mom and a doctor who's more concerned with the baby, not that, obviously, you're not concerned with both. The cause of maternal deaths is largely maternal hemorrhage, so either during a cesarean section or a regular delivery, mom can bleed to death. It sounds ridiculous, but it can happen even at specialized centers in the United States. Emboli, usually pulmonary emboli, blood clots that go to the lungs, kill women, and efforts are being made to reduce the time that women take on airplanes and that kind of thing. But I think emboli, hemorrhage, and complications associated with hypertension, high blood pressure in pregnancy, including ruptured brain aneurysms from very, very high blood pressure that occasionally accompanies delivery, are the main causes of maternal death in the United States. And largely what hurts women and children at the time of delivery is having inadequate access to health care and not taking care of themselves adequately. So there's a large push, in this country at least, to give women and children free medical care, which both infant and maternal mortality correlate very strongly with poverty and usually with being a minority. Both blacks and I think Native Americans have much higher levels of maternal mortality than whites and Hispanics, I think.
And is that just related to lack of health care due to poverty?
Hard to say, but certainly, drawing a cause and effect from those sort of statistics is sometimes hard to do. But it's largely thought that than it is due to poverty, although race plays a role even when poverty is corrected for.
In addition to the socioeconomic struggles impoverished communities deal with, there is also psycho-developmental roadblocks they must face due to the lack of support and nourishment the child would otherwise receive from their mother. For insight on this point, we turn to developmental pediatrician Kathy Talleyrand.
The people who have money and jobs are able to have access to a very different class of healthcare than people without money and without jobs. And children do much better with consistency.
Right.
And if, that is the hand that they're dealt from day one, usually their developmental outcome will be better than a child who has a connection and a relationship with a parent and then loses that parent at whatever age.
So if it's not, if that's not the hand they're dealt from day one, like if they lose it at age 3 or 4 or in their teens, what's the effect in that case?
Again, it depends on the support system. Children, obviously, from higher socioeconomic groups or children who have the good fortune to have access to good psychological care and teachers who care about them and people around them who care about them will do better than children in lower socioeconomic groups who don't have access to those kinds of resources. In the worst case scenario, probably what would happen is the child would end up being someone who was not able to form secure connections with other individuals, and that is something that really can cause all sorts of long-term psychological problems, psychological illnesses. Then again, if they don't have consistent caretakers, if they don't have access to early forms of education or preschools, their IQs can be affected, their educational abilities can be affected. It really, really has to do with what resources are available to the child, and it doesn't have to be a blood relative. They just have to be in a situation where they are cared for and where they're looked after